Okay, what a lad. Well, it's not every day you get an Olympic gold medalist on the podcast or a two-time America's Cup winner, but today I'm lucky enough to be joined by a lad who has done both. He's also responsible for the New Zealand sporting moment of the decade after his Olympic gold medal race, which inspired the nation. And going by the amount of requests I've had to get him on the podcast, he is an absolute lad. It is, of course, the man himself, Joseph Sullivan. Welcome, mate.
Cheers, mate. What an intro.
Mate, great to have you on. So what are you up to at the moment?
Just settling into life down in Tauranga, back in the fire service, and yeah, just getting used to, I don't know, just family life again. It was quite good.
So how long have you been down there?
We moved down just after the end of the Cup, so around May. Was living with the in-laws for a while, and then finally found ourselves a place while we built up in Welcome Bay. So
nice.
Yeah, it's all a new challenge, all a different kind of style. Go from being busy in the America's Cup to being busy doing other stuff. So yeah.
So talk to me about how that works. Like, so you're in Team New Zealand. You've just won the America's Cup, and then you're finished work, have you?
Yeah. So yeah, it's a strange kind of concept, but you go from working 6-7 days a week for nearly 2 years to your pinnacle event, which is the Cup, and then you succeed, which is fantastic, and then you go through the big party and have a great time, and then it's kind of, yeah, it's the end, and it's pretty abrupt, but it's not like we didn't know it's kind of that way, and I guess with COVID and that, we didn't get to have the celebrations around New Zealand that we probably normally would have had, but yeah, challenging times for everyone, so yeah, we just kind of take it as it comes.
Mate, that's crazy. So you're contracted for like a 2-year period, are you? And you're working as hard as you can for that time, and then you're done.
Yeah. It's sport, I guess, and it's that kind of game. And with the America's Cup, as much as the budget's massive, it's not so much for the people. It's more for getting the boat on the water and the development and all the structure in the boat. And yeah, it all disappears and dries up pretty quickly. And yeah, as much as the team would love to keep funding everyone, it just can't be done. So yeah.
So to go again, you have to. How does it work for the next America's Cup?
Yeah, I guess we retrial and go through that process again. Grinders aren't really needed throughout the year, so we just kind of go back into our own little world and keep fit and try to keep on targets and put our best foot forward when the day comes if we get asked again.
Mate, that's crazy. So how does the trial work for a grinder? Is it literally go grind as hard as you can, or is there a technique to it?
There wasn't much technique at the end of the day. It's just raw mongrel, really. You just pretty much thrashing yourself to put out the best numbers you can.
Yeah.
We put you through a series of different tests from sprints to endurance, and some of us are better at some things, and some of us, we're all kind of, I guess we complement each other in different ways throughout the team. So some guys are massive sprinters, and some of us are way better at endurance. So yeah, I think having that range of strengths in the team is really important.
And are you an endurance man from your rowing background?
Yeah, I'd love to say I was a sprinter, and I've done a few sprints in my time, but no, the power that some of those boys can put out is just impressive, and I don't even have a shit show of keeping up with them. So yeah, endurance is more my forte. I'll start and finish at the same kind of pace that I set off at. So
mate, if it's anything like your rowing, you're finishing stronger than you start.
Yeah, that's true. I try to. Yeah, finish in a world of hurt.
Yeah, shit, mate. That's interesting. So, then when's the next America's Cup? When's your next sort of trial to go for it? Are you gonna put your name for it again?
Yeah, definitely put my name for it again. It's a pretty cool experience, and to go for the three-peat would be pretty special. But at the end of the day, I know it's sport, and always looking for the best new talent. And I'd be stupid to think that I've got a seat sewn up. So yeah, I'll start training again soon, and try not to get fat like I have a few times, and just be ready for it if it comes, and if it doesn't, kind of it's sport at the end of the day. So
do you get any benefit from having experience as a grinder?
I guess just understanding what's happening on the boat, and the different demands that are on you, and then being able to deal with the pressure during a race and throughout the race and before the race even, and not psych yourself out or train too hard, or just, you kind of need to have a fine balancing act,
Yeah.
as you do in most sports, to be able to perform on that day and pretty much not fuck it up, really.
Well, you obviously didn't do that because you guys had a very successful campaign, didn't you?
Yeah, well, there were definitely some challenging days where we thought we were going to go 2-0 and we went 1-1 and things like that. So it's also being able to deal with that kind of disappointment and just being able to keep going and keep fighting right till the end.
Yeah.
Never giving up.
Because you obviously don't come from a sailing background either, do you? So did you learn all this pretty quickly?
Yeah, pretty quickly. So I did sail as a kid.
Oh, you
I
did.
was made to jump in a sunburst with my brother because he was a passionate sailor, and I hated it. Sailing was not my thing. I was I think I was 8 when I started and kind of finished when I was 12.
Yeah.
And then moved up to Picton and got told by the head boy that I was going to start rowing. So, yeah.
True.
That's kind of where that kicked off.
What do you mean you got told you're going to start rowing by the head boy? Did he literally just come up and tell you?
Yeah, so I moved town, so moved up from Rangiora to Picton, went to the local college, and pretty much at the start of the year they do their cross country. I started as a little 13-year-old and managed to win the cross country.
There he is.
And literally the head boy at the time, Ryan Gordon, just came up to me and he's like, "You're going to start rowing." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, sweet as." All right. Yeah. Didn't have anything else to do, and I was, yeah, why not? Give it a go.
Did you like it? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, loved it. Good bunch of lads, lots of banter. Yeah, it was just good fun. I remember turning up for the first day of rowing, and the coach at the time pulled up in his little Hilux, dead pig on the back. He was an avid hunter. I'm straight from the freezing works, and he pulled up and he wound the window down. He's like, "You here for the rowing?" And I was like, "Yep, real keen." And he's like, "Well, you'll be no good. You're too fucking small."
Oh, true.
He drove off and parked his ute, and I was like, "Oh, cool. This is going to be fun."
Oh, that's ruthless.
Yeah.
So you were short for a rower, were you?
Yeah, well, I still am. I think at the Olympics I was the shortest and lightest.
Wow.
Heavyweight.
True.
Yeah.
Obviously didn't restrict you though.
Nah, I just had to change our style a bit. We're more like a Jack Russell racing a Labrador. Just taking heaps more steps.
So what was your training like? Because I remember a couple of rowers at my school at the time, they used to have to get up real early in the morning, train pretty hard, and then head off to school. Is it similar for you?
Probably not so much through my school. We had a little Mitsubishi van that we had to drive through from Picton through to Blenheim.
Yeah.
And then we had some sheds that we put in so the Blenheim Rowing Club was up on stilts pretty much near the river. And then we slapped some tin up in the stilts and we used to put our boats underneath the shed. So we could only really train in the afternoons. So we just kind of finished school, got together in the van, and then kept it through to Blenheim. And we'd probably do like 20k to 30k a day, just in the afternoons as school kids, and then do the one early morning on a Saturday. But it was never really that early. It was around 7. So yeah, we had probably a cruisier lifestyle, but when we did train, we had a good bunch of lads, and they just loved to push it as hard as they could at every moment.
Did you know that you were good, like from a young age?
Not really. I just kind of was part of the crew. Was just having fun. I think in our first year, we didn't even make an A final. I think we got second in a B final, and we were pretty stoked with that. But then again, I guess we wanted to win, and we were pretty keen, so we started training even harder. And then the next year, picked up I think 2 gold medals, and that kind of just set it off. And
caught the bag. Yeah,
I guess we got a feel of it after that we had potential. We definitely weren't the prettiest. We were our technique was terrible, but we just kind of trained harder than everyone else. And we were just fit.
Where did you learn your technique? Because obviously you had to learn your good technique from somewhere. When did you start picking up on the technique side of things?
I guess it just comes. I guess it comes a bit natural, and then once you get kind of got into the New Zealand teams and stuff, and they start to focus on it a bit more. But yeah, I don't think I've ever had the best technique in rowing, and you can probably ask a lot of people. Mine's always been terrible, but I've always just made it work for me. My style is very different to everyone else's, and definitely when I got together with Nathan, that was a big thing that we had to overcome. Kind of matching our styles up together.
So you started off as a single sculler, but then you changed to double. So what was the reason behind that transition?
Well, I went to 4 New Zealand junior trials. I won probably 11 gold medals at New Zealand secondary schools.
Wow.
And from all those trials, I got selected into the team not once.
Far out.
They always told me I was too short, not compatible. And it kind of wasn't until I got taken to an ombudsman by the Marlborough Rowing Association that I actually got a forced entry into the New Zealand junior team. So I actually started in a double with one of my schoolmates, Daniel Carina, and we went to World Juniors and we ended up getting a third with only 8 weeks training. And the teams that they selected all got second in B finals or not even in them. So
crazy.
It was pretty special.
Mate, that's mad.
Yeah. And then from there, when I went into the single, I was actually the reserve for the men's 4. So I didn't get sent in the single as the single sculler. I got sent as the reserve.
Far out.
And then ended up winning the first under 23 worlds.
Jeez. So does height make that much of a difference? So that they were just, even though you're winning all these races, they weren't going to pick you.
I think like the New Zealand team was so focused on the glory of the 8s back in the day.
Yeah.
And all those guys were just big guys, and that's kind of what they saw as rowers. Like they looked for people that were well over 6 foot. They had long legs, long arms. And that was kind of their ultimate. The selectors were the guys from back in the day. So they were looking for the guys of their own image, I guess. And I just didn't fit that. I was short arms, long back. I'm exactly what a rower should not be. I'm literally the complete opposite of what a rower should be.
Mate, well, that's so cool. Doing it for the little men or the short-armed men.
Yeah.
So cool. So your mindset must just be next level of the way that you can push yourself and compete with these guys who are, I guess, have the physical attributes of a rower.
I guess I'm just stubborn.
Yeah.
Like I was always like my siblings are all a bit older than me, and I hated being left out, and I think that was just pretty much it. Every time I got told I couldn't do anything, I was like, nah, fuck that. I'm gonna give it a go. I like to prove a point, I guess. And it just kind of worked for me.
You certainly proved your point. So you talked about your and Nathan's relationship and how you had to adjust. So what was that relationship like initially?
It was pretty good. Like we got along, and we'd always raced each other throughout school. Nathan always kicked my ass in the single, but I was luckily a few years after him, so he kind of went and dominated the single, and then I came through the next few years after and dominated the single at secondary schools. So we always had competed against each other, like James Hargest and Queen Charlotte College back in the day always had a kind of a massive rivalry, but we all got along at the same time, which was really cool. So then when we eventually got onto the double together, I was just trying to emulate him and get into his style, but I just couldn't match it. He had really long arms, and I just had really short arms, and I guess we just had to figure that out and adapt our style, because it was impossible to make one of us row like the other, so then we had to just find that medium ground. But I guess it ended up complementing each other. Like I kind of go bad at hell from the start, and then he's really strong through the middle of the race, and then I just go a bit nuts at the end, and we managed to make it work.
So you have to keep the same tempo the whole race, obviously. And how important's that?
Yeah, it's pretty important. Like, I guess, like ultimately in a race, you would want to keep the same tempo right from the start to the finish, but I've never been able to do that. I
Yeah.
kind of start and then find into a rhythm and then try to hold that as best I can, and then I get to a point in the race where I know I can finish it off and just kind of go for it. But yeah, mostly in rowing, it is finding that pace throughout the race and then holding it and then trying to get better at the end.
Yeah.
But I've always known the middle of my race has always been pretty average, and it's always something I've been trying to work on. But yeah, that's where Nathan was really, really strong, which was cool to be paired up with him.
And when you talk about that last 500 meters, can technique go out the window, or like how important's technique still in these moments when you are just emptying the tank?
It's definitely important, because if you're not getting the blade in the water at the right spot, you're just wasting energy. But
yeah,
we just kind of got into a rhythm that we knew no matter how many 500s we did, no matter how screwed we were, we could always kind of do a time right at the end of the race. So no matter how buggered we were, if we got to that last 1,500 meters, we knew we could just finish. So
yeah,
it was almost, because at that point you just want to keel over. You're hurting, you're struggling, and you just want it to end. But you know that you've just got to keep doing that next stroke and that next stroke and that next stroke right to the finish. And I kind of remember looking back at the race for the first time, and all I could see was my head going side to side. And I remember trying to think what I was thinking at the time, and I was just looking for the finish line because I just wanted it to be over.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, "Did you know you won?" And if you look at the video, no, I had no idea. I thought we got third.
True. Was this in the London Olympic one, the final?
Yeah, the London Olympics. I thought we got third.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. So
mate, that's
finished
classic.
the race. I didn't even notice that we'd passed everyone.
Oh wow, you were in Hurt Locker.
Yeah, and it wasn't until we kind of looked up at the big screen.
Oh, that's crack up, and that's one of the greatest races, obviously, in New Zealand's sporting history. Talk to me about the whole build up to that race and the lead up to that event.
Our build up was pretty poor, eh? We had this massive training block in New Zealand, and we kind of went into it knowing that we were going to be in the Hurt Locker before we got on the plane to go to Europe for the World Cups and things like that.
Yeah.
And we went through all that, and I remembered, like, a few days before we got on the plane to leave to Europe, the selectors pulled us aside and were like, "What are you guys up to?" And we're like, "Well, what do you mean?" And they're like, "Well, you're going like shit. Like, you probably shouldn't even be going." And we're like, "Fuck." like, what the hell? This is not what we want to hear just before we get on the plane overseas. And so we kind of take that on board, and we're a bit like, we don't know what to do, because I guess when you put yourself in that position and you've been training so hard and you make yourself hurting, you're also mentally fatigued and physically fatigued. So when someone comes and says that to you, you take it all the wrong way.
Yeah.
And we went into our first World Cup that weekend. Like, you go straight into it once you get to Europe, and we went absolute balls. We got second to last in the B final.
True.
Because it had mentally ruined us, having the selectors come to us and just tell us we were rowing like shit.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, me and Nathan were trying to figure out, like, why we were rowing like shit. And we kind of just, instead of sticking to what we knew and what we were doing, we just went the complete opposite and started going real terribly. So that was a bit terrifying. We get second to last. We're only just beating, like, Iran and countries that are just not there for rowing.
Yeah.
We're freaking out a bit, and then it's quite tense between the two of us for a few months. And we're just trying to figure out what we're going wrong. And when we start doing all the kind of wrong things, we start changing little things that we didn't even need to look at. And training was hard, and we were pretty grumpy with each other. And the worse we were going, the harder we tried to train. So we were just staying in that mental fatigue longer and longer and longer. And it wasn't till, I don't know, quite late into it. It was the third World Cup before the Olympics, and we were like, what the hell are we doing? We need to just go back to basics, and we kind of set ourselves up again, and we just went straight back to basics, doing the real simple things again that we'd always done, and kind of threw out the window of all these changes that we'd made, and we put all our settings in our boat back to what we had it originally in New Zealand, when we were happy with it and we were going well. And then all of a sudden we kind of clicked again, and we ended up getting silver at the World Cup just before the Olympics.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, we do have something here.
So what inspired those little changes to that you made?
I think we were just looking for things that weren't even there. So I think our coach started coming up with different ideas of what it could be, and it just wasn't that, and we just started going down the wrong path.
Yeah.
And I think leading into the Olympics, we were in Belgium for like 6 weeks before we went to London, and it rained every day, and we were just in a bad space, I think.
Yeah.
I think there was a few days where me and Nathan didn't even talk to each other, and we were living in the same room, biking to training together and rowing in the same boat, and we just didn't talk, and it was tense. And I guess it was like, looking back, it was just stupid, but when you're in that fatigue and you're in that zone, everything's just real niggly, and things that shouldn't get to you just get to you. And luckily we kind of, I don't even know what set it off, but we kind of had an argument one day, and then we just kind of cleared the air.
Yeah.
And we kind of just were like, what the fuck are we doing? We need to sort this out.
Yeah.
And we actually agreed to go on a road trip together, and we ended up talking to our coach, who wasn't happy about it, and we talked to our manager, who wasn't really happy about it either, but he kind of agreed with us that we needed to get away. And we were in this place that's called Mechelen in Belgium, and we told our coaches that we're going to go to Bruges, and Bruges is about an hour's drive from where we were.
Yeah.
But instead we rented a car and started driving to the south of France, which was 1200 k's away. And we left at 5 at night on a Friday, and we thought we'd drive halfway, find a hotel, and then camp there for the night, and then do the rest of the trip.
Yeah.
Started our trip, and the motorway was real busy, and we were like, what the hell? Found out that it was the first day of summer holidays over in Belgium, and we were literally traveling with thousands of other people through the middle of the night. We couldn't find accommodation anywhere, and then we ended up like in the south of France in Marseille. We just took turns driving through the night, and we got to this McDonald's, and it was back in the day when you didn't have data on your phone.
Yeah.
So we had to find a McDonald's so then we could get Wi-Fi, and we just searched like the best beach in Marseille, and then we literally drove to this little beach, and it was just the best time. We had some sunshine for the first time in months, and we just cruised to the beach, went swimming, got a little yacht, went sailing. We took our bikes with us and went bike riding, and literally all we needed was this mental break. And it was epic. It was just a good time. Had a few beers, had some pizza, and just I guess we just connected as mates again instead of just getting niggly at each other.
Yeah, mate, it's living.
And then the next day we packed up and drove all the way back to Belgium. And then talking to people, they're like, where have you guys been? And we're like, oh, we went to the south of France. And they're like, fuck off, you did. Like, no one believed us. We're completely telling the truth, and everyone's like, nah, whatever. But what a joke. And just looking back at things like that now, I honestly think if we didn't do that one trip away, we wouldn't have got a medal at the Olympics. After that one trip and just that mental break and getting that bit of mental health back, and that we were just revived, really.
Yeah.
Like, we were still tired and we were still knackered, but just having that change of pace and that change of scenery, we came back firing. And that whole build up for the next 2 weeks leading into London, like, we were unstoppable, and it just gave us so much confidence and realization that we actually had a shot at maybe getting a medal. So yeah,
crazy. So when you say that you're like you're not getting a break, how intense is that training leading up to that? Like, you obviously can't have a pizza or a few beers most nights.
Oh, you can definitely have a pizza and a few beers. We're just burning calories, but I think just being in that lockdown where you're in a training camp, and I guess lots of sports will understand this. Like you go overseas and you're so focused on that one event, and then if you're having a few bad days, then you try to train the bad things out. So we ended up we were getting worse. So instead of pulling back and giving ourselves a break, we started pushing harder.
Yeah.
So we went from training 6 days a week to 7 days a week.
Yeah.
And instead of like having a break, we were just making ourselves worse and worse and worse. And literally just stepping back for 2 days was enough. And that kind of just gave us the peace of mind and the confidence and that connection as a crew again. To just do the basics well that we'd always done.
Mate, how cool is that? So then you were feeling pretty confident heading into the Olympics after that 2-day tour.
Yeah, our whole build-up had been terrible, and then 2 weeks before the Olympics, we just had a really good moment and found the speed that we used to have and that feel that we used to have as well.
Yeah,
because in rowing, it's literally about feel. Like you can row a boat as hard as you want, but if it doesn't feel good and it doesn't move the way you want it to, you're just wasting energy. So yeah, it sounds like it's easy to do, but it's real hard to find that rhythm as a combination.
Mate, doesn't sound easy at all. So then what about your qualifying? Did you feel confident heading into those qualifiers?
You're never really confident. Like you have a sense that you can achieve, and like it wasn't like we were the worst rowers in the world. We were the world champions currently, and we had defended that twice before getting to the Olympics.
Yeah.
But it was kind of funny, like our build-up was so terrible that everyone had written us off. Like the media weren't even following us, which was perfect in the hindsight. Like we didn't have that pressure that probably Eric and Bondi had or Maha had or Emma had. We were kind of going into it as, oh, these boys are going like shit, don't expect much from them. Yeah. So it was almost perfect for us. But yeah, for me, going into the Olympics, it's the same as World Champs. You're racing the same people, but it's one of those events that everyone can put their best foot forward at the end of the day, and you never know who's going to be on fire in those heats and in those semis. So for me, it was quite nerve-wracking, and having the massive crowds. You go from having like 5,000 people at a World Champs watching to, I think there was 60 or 70,000 people watching on the grandstands in London. And you can hear them from the start line. And I remember doing our warm-up session, going to the start of the heat. And it was just the heat, and we were racing crews that we knew we could smash, but I was so nervous that I ended up like vomiting in the boat, going to the start line. And I'd never done that before, ever in my life. Like, I've been to World Champs 6 times, and I've been to everything. And just having that nerves that everyone at home's watching, like, no one really watches a World Champs until the final, but at the Olympics, everyone's watching the heats, they're watching the semis, they're watching the repechages, like that expectation, and that, I guess, got to me. But as soon as I vomited and as soon as I let it out, I was calm again.
Good to go.
Kind of just, good to go. And you get that one race under your belt and everything just starts feeling way better, and you get that confidence again. So
what were the nerves like for the big final?
To be fair, for the final, I was far more calm than I was even going into the heat. Like, the heat was more nerve-wracking to me than the final. Winning the heat and then getting that confidence, then going into the semis and knowing that we still had a bit more power to come.
How did you know that? Just because you're feeling good?
Yeah, I guess just leading into it, we kind of went through that race and we kind of let one of the crews get in front of us a bit, and then we just pushed up to them and we could hold them, and we kind of just knew that we didn't have to exert everything that we had to get to that final.
Yeah.
And that was a really good feeling, knowing that we were slightly holding back, ready for the big race. And even leading into London, we knew the lanes were slightly, I guess, biased. There was always a slight side wind from one side of the course to the other. So if you won, then you got stuck right in the middle. But if we didn't win, we got stuck slightly to the side. So we almost did a slight gamble, and we ended up in the perfect lane for the race.
And your plan for that race, was it always to start off relatively slow and finish strong, or is that just what happened?
No, that's absolutely never our plan. It always looks like it is because it happens to us every time, but every time we race, we try to get out with everyone else, and we try to hold in the main group and then give it a good push at the end. But every race we do, we kind of got known for our sprint finishes from the world champs in 2010.
Yeah.
So crews knew that they had to get on top of us and try to hold us off. So yeah, we went into that last final knowing that everyone was going to try gap it from us, and we just couldn't keep up, literally. We had a really good start, and I thought everything was going really well, and Nathan was giving me real good feedback. I don't look out of the boat, and he makes all the calls. So going down through the 750, he's like, yep, we're right in it, keep going, we're going good. Through the 1,000, he kept like telling me we're going good, we're right up in the where we need to be, we're going good.
Yeah.
1,500, we're going good. And then in the last 500, he's just like, yep, go. And we just kind of went. We don't even say anything for that last 500 meters. But looking back at the race now, I 100% know he was lying to me the whole way. we were well off the pace. We were 4 seconds behind at the 1,000-meter mark. Yeah.
Yeah. What's he told you since the race? Was he always confident or nah?
Yeah, I think Nathan always knew we had that potential, and he knew other crews had gapped it from us. But I guess if you're looking after yourselves as a crew, you're not going to tell your mate that you're going really bad. You're just going to keep them positive, and that's what he did.
Yeah.
Which was really cool. And it's having that trust in your crew that we're going to back each other up. But I just have to believe what he's saying, and I don't look out of the boat. I try to stay focused on our rhythm and keep driving forward, and he makes the calls. So I trusted him, and he did it perfectly. He lied to me when he needed to, and he got us to the 1,500 meter mark where we needed to be, and then we kind of just unleashed it together and just let all the mongrel out.
Let it all out and got you the line for third in your mind.
Yeah. And it's amazing how happy you can be with a third. Like getting a bronze at the Olympics was like, to me, I was ecstatic. That was incredible.
Yeah.
And then to look up at the screen, like to see the screen and then realize that we'd actually won was just, I was beside myself.
That's so cool. And what's the celebrations like? How does a rower celebrate a Olympic gold medal?
You'd actually be super disappointed with us with our celebrations the night of our medal. You go from doing the hardest race of your life into literally, we did 7 hours of media interviews.
Oh, true.
Like you finish the race, you row to the dais, you do a circuit with the media. You don't even get to warm down or anything like that. You get your medal, and then you go to a conference, and you have to sit there and chat about the race. And then from there, you go and talk to more media.
Yeah.
And then you get like 20 minutes to see your family and have a drink. And the beer or the alcohol just goes straight to your head. And then you get put in another car and driven off to go talk to some more media.
Yeah.
And then by the end of it, like all I wanted to do was just go home.
Yeah.
We literally just went back to the hotel and got a bed and went to bed. I was knackered, eh?
Yeah.
And it's so surreal. Like for me, like the Olympics has been 12 years of my life to get that one achievement, and then to have it in your hand and it's there. It almost didn't make sense. It was almost surreal. But even taking that night just to kind of chill on my own and realize what had happened was pretty cool. And then after that, it all kind of let loose. Then it was good partying. But yeah, I think the best thing about the Olympics for a rower is it's normally done in the first 5 days. So you get another 8 to 10 days of just absolute partying. And yeah, it was an experience like no other. I'd have to say that. Like an Olympic gold medal gets you into every party and to every sport that you want to go watch.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was good fun.
Did you party with any famous names?
Um, Not really. We went to a few bars that I'd never even known existed um, before in my life, and I guess there were famous people there, but we didn't really get to mingle with them. I remember the one night that I didn't go out, like the one out of all those nights. The boys came back and they were like, "We were partying with Ludacris," and I was like, "What the hell?" And he was like, "Yeah," he was shouting us like champagne with gold flakes in it all night, and it was fantastic. And I was like, "Son of a bitch!" the one night I didn't go out, I missed out on that. Yeah, but it's always classic like that. But yeah, my mental state during that was probably, I can't remember half of the partying. We were like, you go from being the fittest you've ever been to drinking every night, and it's pretty torturous on the body.
And then what's the crash like when you're getting back to reality? You're, like you said, you've been planning for this for 12 years and it's all happened, and then you're back to reality, I guess.
Yeah, it's a strange thing, eh? Like, and I can't imagine how the athletes are feeling after Tokyo. Like, you kind of have this pinnacle event that you've been working your whole life for, and then you have all these big parties, and that's really cool. And then you come back and you have a few more big parties, and everything's sweet. And then a week after that, like you're pretty much old, like you're old news, really. And you're just back to life as normal, and it's a strange place. It's definitely a hard kind of thing to comprehend. Like, you don't have that routine that you had before. Like, you would go to training and you would do this and you would do that. And all of a sudden that's gone. You don't need to go to training anymore. Yeah, so it was a different kind of lifestyle. It was a strange kind of feeling after that. And I remember we had a meeting with Rowing New Zealand and got told we could have 4 months off. And I was like, man, that's fantastic. I don't think I've had a break in the last kind of 12 years. So I took that as eagerly as I could. And I remember like a month after that, my coach was like, "Oh, you got to start training again. All the boys are going real fast." And I was just like, what the hell? Like, you've just been told you could have a 4 month break, and then all of a sudden you're getting told you have to come back because everyone's going real quick.
Yeah.
I'm like, mate, it's like the year after the Olympics. No one cares. Let us enjoy it. And
yeah.
Little did I know that was pretty much the end of my career.
Because you didn't go back, or did you want to finish?
I said I was going to have a break, and I kind of took the next month or two. So I ended up only having a break for 2 months, I think. And just from there, it was all kind of over. I didn't get put in the same boats that I should have been put in, and I got told I didn't deserve this. And yeah, my career just kind of disappeared out from under me. It was a strange time.
That's crazy. So I always thought that you just finished on your own terms, but you were actually just weren't selected. The current Olympic champion took a couple of months off, and now he's not good enough.
Yeah, it was almost like I got shunned pretty much, and it was a strange thing. Like, we got told that we didn't need to be back on form, and that they would build crews around us and stuff like that, to just being literally axed and told that you were the reserve, or like, yeah, you didn't deserve to be in this crew. And I'm like, what? This is so messed up. Yeah, so definitely went through a massive mental battle through that kind of period of my life. And it kind of just, it kind of ruined my passion for the sport, and getting told after winning an Olympic gold medal, after winning like 6 world champs, that I had to be proving myself and jumping through these hoops again.
Yeah.
It just absolutely messed with me. And I definitely just lost the passion for it, and lost the drive to be pushing hard. I kind of always told myself to win an Olympic gold medal for rowing you need a good 4-year build up, and all of a sudden my first year of those 4 years was destroyed, and then my passion for the second year just got worse, and all of a sudden they were putting different guys into the double and telling me I didn't even deserve a shot at trialing for that seat. It was mentally, pretty much mentally fucked me, really. And after that I was like, nah, screw it, I don't need this shit, which is really sad, because I knew I still had potential, and I really wanted to back it up. But just getting made to jump through hoops again was just insane. So ended up calling it quits. And
mate, that's absolute madness.
Yeah.
Jeez. So how did you deal with it mentally? Obviously it would have been incredibly tough. What sort of got you through that?
I don't think much got me through that. I was in a pretty dark space for quite a long time. I remember, like, when I finally decided to end it with rowing, like, I'd just be in bed like half the day. I just didn't have any reason to get out. I didn't know what I was doing. I'd kind of thrown all my eggs in one basket. Rowing was everything that I was doing. I hadn't really, like, I'd gone to university, but I wasn't really enjoying that, and it wasn't the path I wanted to go down. So when I ended, I didn't really have anything to drive myself for or look towards. And it was a weird situation. But I think one of the strangest things that kind of happened was I got asked to do an interview for a guy called David Slyfield. And he was kind of looking for, I guess, the X factors or what makes a good Olympian and a medalist, and like what kind of things had impacted my life that made me be like I was, or be mentally resilient for the Olympics or for my sport. And just had some really good yarns with him. And then at the end of that, he was kind of like, I do some work with Team New Zealand and you'd be a really good fit. And I was like, man, that'd be mint. Like,
yeah,
I've never really thought about it, but being part of Team New Zealand would be really cool. And this was literally just after Team New Zealand had just had the biggest upset in sporting history, losing from 8 points up to just losing it.
Yeah.
So it was like the most devastating time watching that, while I'd just been dropped from the New Zealand rowing team to excited to watch the America's Cup and getting up every morning to see them lose day after day after being so close to winning it.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, that's just strange. And then nothing kind of happened after that. And then I ended up joining the New Zealand Fire Service and getting involved in that, and kind of found a new passion with that.
Yeah.
And then randomly one day I just got a phone call from David again, and he's like, Team New Zealand are looking for grinders. I'll put your name down, expect a call. And I was like, holy shit. This is awesome. So yeah, the next day I get a call from Glenn Ashby, and he's like, come down and have a look and see what you think. And that was kind of the start of a new career. I'd gone from the bottom of the pits, and then all of a sudden I was back into it.
Far out. What a journey. So had you done any grinding before, or was this just completely out of the blue? He just basically picked you from your mental toughness?
Yeah, it was pretty much out of the blue. It was kind of like the team's having a massive rebuild. Lots of people have left, lots of people have stayed. Lots of people left, a few people have stayed, and I think it's a really good time to get involved in the team. The team that's there is really cool, and they're dedicated to it, and they're just passionate about what they're doing, and that just sounded like the dream scenario for me. I remember he said, like, they've got no money, so don't expect anything, and to me it didn't really matter. I just, like, I guess it was the challenge that I was up for. And I was still working in the fire service, and then on my days off, so you do 4 days on, 4 days off in the fire service, and my days off I'd go out on the yacht and was learning to sail in the test boat and learning to grind and just doing jobs around the yard and stuff like that. And kind of learned the dynamic of Team New Zealand, which is literally it's not always the most talented person, but it's always the guy that's going to be passionate about it and put his best foot forward and work for that common goal. And it was just an awesome atmosphere to be part of.
Yeah, what is that? What is Team New Zealand like? How does it all work? Who runs the cutter?
There's lots of different bosses, I guess, throughout the whole team. Everyone likes to think they're in charge, I think. But yeah, I guess like for the grinding team, we kind of do our training and then we become the dog's body of the team. We do all the jobs that no one wants to do.
Yeah.
We like get out in the yard emptying containers of stuff that hasn't been touched since the version 5s and like gluing down little pet eyes that no one wants to touch, and also painting wall after wall or moving this thing to there, and then no, it doesn't really work there. We'll move that back over there, and we were literally just the grunt men of the team. But it was cool. We did all the jobs the boat builders didn't have time to do or didn't need to waste their time doing menial things. But it created a massive team atmosphere where we did the shit jobs for them, and then if we went out sailing and ruined the boat, then they would work all night to make sure it was ready for us the next day.
Yeah.
And it was just a wicked team atmosphere.
Mate, that's cool. And what's the grinders training like? You said that you guys would do training in the morning. What's that involve?
It was pretty similar to rowing in many ways. Like we would start a session and it could be anywhere from an hour to 2 hours. Just endurance or weights or speed work. And then literally after that we go have breakfast and then we're into the day like helping out around the shed. And then towards the afternoon we start kind of tiring and getting worse at doing our jobs. And then we peel back into the gym and push ourselves again for the afternoon.
True. Is it all upper body stuff mainly?
Yeah, a lot of upper body. It's more full body than you think it would be.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty similar to say boxing, where lots of the power comes from the rotation and the twist and things like that. So yeah, you do get bigger arms, but your body is also got to be pretty fit to balance it out, really.
And how's it compare with the lungs compared to rowing?
It definitely doesn't hurt the lungs as much as rowing.
Yeah.
Because once your arms are buggered, there's not much you can do about it. They kind of
true.
they just turn to jelly, and you can be as fit as you want to be, but as soon as your arms are gone, there's nothing. There's just nothing you can do about it. Like you could keep trying to push, but your arms just won't do it. It's a strange feeling. Like if you go and do a bench press and try to do as many like unlimited bench press, you start off real good and your form's really tight, and then as you get like to 10 it gets worse, and then as you get to 20 it gets worse, and then you get around 30 and you're just flopping around. It's just there's absolutely nothing you can do about it.
Yeah. So when you are training, are you emptying your tank every session, or is that what you have to push yourself to, or is it a bit more technical than that?
No, it definitely was. We always kind of the competitiveness between the team was, I guess, what drove us to the levels that we got to. Like, as much as I hated it, I hate numbers. I hate reading my data. I just like doing the training and then going home.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of the team love the data and love that comparison between each other.
Yeah.
And you can't help but get dragged into it as much as I didn't enjoy it. So our numbers would always get put up on the board, and then it just gets competitive, and then you're always trying to outdo each other, and you're trying to figure out ways that you can slightly get better than the other person.
Yeah.
And you're always pushing the limits. Yeah. It's always, it's good banter.
And what was it like? Obviously, the whole America's Cup here in New Zealand. What was that like?
Oh mate, the atmosphere for the America's Cup in New Zealand is second to none. We did that whole campaign in Bermuda, and as cool as Bermuda was, there just wasn't the crowds and the support that we get when we're in New Zealand. And like you're leading into, like, you go to work every day and you go past all these people and no one really notices you. And then all of a sudden you've got a regatta on, and all of a sudden there's thousands of people, and they're all looking at you. They're checking to see if you're wearing the same uniform as all the crew, and like all of a sudden you're an important person.
Yeah.
And like the whole feel of Auckland and New Zealand just changes. Like the media starts getting behind us instead of writing stories bagging us out for being money hungry sports teams, and we're pushing the limits and we're getting special treatment, and then all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, Team New Zealand are great, we've always backed them, like but it's such a cool atmosphere, and to see the excitement from everyone around New Zealand just really helps like pump you up and get you excited about what you're doing, and it makes you feel, I guess, pretty special to be part of the team. You kind of go through all those hard days where you're like, man, this is just draining, and like, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this to ourselves? And then you kind of notice everyone around you getting excited, and like knowing that people would give anything to be in the position that you're at kind of brings it back into perspective that what you're doing is really cool. And I'd say like any top sports person must feel like that. You have those just absolute slog days where you question why you're doing your sport, why you're doing this to yourself.
Yeah.
But you're literally little kids' dreams. Like you're doing exactly what they want to do when they grow up, or you're fulfilling someone's dream lifestyle. And it really makes you sit back and realize how special it is what you're doing, and how great the opportunity is that you've got to be part of that team and fighting for the America's Cup.
Mate, that's so true. And did you feel like you enjoyed the bigger team environment compared to the rowing, or is it hard to compare the two?
It's a strange comparison. Like in rowing, you've almost got to be pretty selfish, and look after number one or look after your crew, because even within Rowing New Zealand, although you're a big team, like the competitive streak between, like, say, the men's double versus the men's pair, or mahe, and we're all trying to fight for that top position, and you always race and do these trainings throughout the week where you get rated prognostically against the world record for each event, and like we're all doing different times. So say Emma's in the single, of course the men's double is going to kick her on time, but even her handicap compared to her world best time, she can beat us at the end of the day in like a 4K race prognostically. So everyone's real competitive for that one prognostic to try to be top of that sheet. And like as much as you're all mates at the end of the day, you get like real competitive and you get a bit sassy against each other. Like you're always trying to one up each other, and I guess that's what makes the team so strong. Is that even though we're all in different boats and different categories, we're all fighting to be top of that list.
And that compared to America's Cup, I guess there's none of that, is there? You're all in it together.
Well, definitely there with the grinding team, but when you walk out into the shed and you see like the 60 boat builders slogging their asses off, working through the night and not seeing their families for ages, and then all the office staff up there designing away and having meeting after meeting about development, and you kind of realize you're only a small cog in this massive machine that's all working for that common goal, and it kind of it definitely puts it into perspective that you've just got to do your best, and as little as your best seems in the team, it's definitely all going in that right direction to be part of it. And it's a cool atmosphere to be part of a massive team with that one common goal of retaining the cup, or in the first cases of getting the cup back to New Zealand. And then the history behind the cup is insane as well.
Yeah. And then winning that cup, how does that feeling compare?
Winning the Olympic gold was pretty special to me because that's what I worked 12 years of my life.
Yeah.
Like I dedicated myself to rowing.
Yeah.
So that was pretty surreal and really special for me. But then to win the America's Cup and to go on tour with it afterwards and see the passion from not only the little kids, but like the middle-aged men and then the old ladies, and everyone remembers Peter Blake and the like Black Magic, and everyone remembers those days and how great it was in like '95 when the Cup first came to New Zealand, and that nostalgia for New Zealand is really special, and yeah, it just brings all new meaning to the event and the Cup and the history behind it. So yeah, the America's Cup is just an epic thing to win, and yeah, it's completely satisfying when you got to bring it home.
Yeah.
We knew we had a smaller budget than the other teams, and it was the whole New Zealand the whole New Zealand. It was the Kiwi way, really, like low budget, small team, like odds stacked against us, and then we dominate on a world stage. Yeah, it was pretty special.
So cool. And then what are the celebrations like after America's Cup? Big team like that, geez, I'd imagine it would be full on.
It was messy. I know that. Like the night we won, anyone that was a Kiwi or was related to a Kiwi was in that tent with us in Bermuda, and like everyone was just drinking. We were doing bombs off the wharf. Like, how Kiwi could it be? Like, everyone was just fully clothed, jumping into the water, and then just drinking all night. Like, it was literally the 100 best New Zealand beer drinking songs till 3 a.m, and everyone was just losing their voices, and it was a strange moment.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah, it was a good party, and I remember coming back to the base in the morning after the big party, and of all people that were there was Trevor Mallard, the Speaker of the House, was in shorts and a t-shirt, cleaning up in the tent, and we're like, mate, what are you up to? He's just helping out. It was a strange feeling. Like, it was just a strange atmosphere, but man, it was cool.
So good. And the same when you won in New Zealand?
Yeah, definitely. It was almost not disappointing, but like knowing that we were in the midst of COVID and everyone was a bit suspect about celebrating, but it kind of, the party was short, but when it was happening, man, it was cool. Like when we won it, and you're out on the water and you have that flotilla of thousands of boats, and everyone's trying to get closer to the yacht. And I'm pretty sure I saw Tamaiti on a jet ski with the Māori flag, and like it was so many random things happening. And then to try and get the boat back on the foils and get it back into the bay, like back into the dock, to be greeted by crowds of people. The ship's horns were blasting as we were coming back in. There were thousands of boats trying to keep up with us, and people just absolutely ruining themselves on on the boat. We're like, and then you get back to the crowd, and like you get back to the wharf, and the wharf is packed. Like, there are people everywhere.
Yeah.
I've definitely never experienced something that cool and that special. Some Kiwis love to hate the America's Cup, but when you see it out like that and you see everyone that was there, and even talking to random people now, like one of my crewmates that I've just met down here in Tauranga was up there the day we won, and how special it was to them. And yeah, it was a strange thing. It wasn't just Aucklanders. There were people from all over New Zealand and all over the country there celebrating with us. And yeah, it's a surreal thing, especially in New Zealand. You definitely can't put words to it.
Yeah, so cool. And so cool you've got to experience all of those successes. But then, like what happened in the rowing, you're straight back to reality. I mean, you've won the America's Cup, and then you're done. Like you said, you become old news pretty quick. Yeah,
it is a strange thing, but I guess for me this time it was pretty cool. I started this last campaign with no children and ended this campaign with 2 little girls. So for me, just to be able to go home and spend time with them, and knowing we didn't have to go back to work or go to another training, it was really cool to me. It was definitely special to be able to spend more time with them and be, I guess there's nothing cooler than being your own child's like idol, and seeing how cool it is, how much they love it, and how much they love having you around and things like that. So it was really, really, real special. And pretty much after that, we just got a camper and went on a road trip. So although we didn't get the good parties, it was just epic to be traveling around New Zealand and just having a good time and really, yeah, seeing New Zealand for what it is.
So cool. And then are you back in the fire service now?
Yeah, so yeah, big for my job back, and no, they've been really good. So every time I get this opportunity with Team New Zealand, they give me unpaid leave, and I get to go off and represent New Zealand. So when I come back, I get slotted back into the crews and kind of get back into that lifestyle. But for me, I guess the fire service is that same kind of atmosphere. You're with a good group of people that are all kind of striving to be the best at what they're doing, and
Yeah.
there's always good banter, and we're always trying to solve New Zealand's problems around the coffee table in the morning. Yeah, just shit yarns and lots of banter, and just yeah, it's like being in a sports team again, and that's really cool. I definitely
Yeah.
enjoy that kind of atmosphere. I don't think I've ever been built to sit behind a desk or do a real paperwork job. So something that keeps me active and in the community is always really cool for me.
So is that the plans for you going forward? Stay in the service, and when the next America's Cup campaign starts, you'll be looking to push for that?
Yeah, pretty much. I'm one of those people. I just kind of go with the flow. Like,
Yeah.
for me, when I got told to like, I was in that bad way after getting dropped from the team, and it was a couple of lads that I'd met from the fire service that pretty much came up to me one day and they were like, "Look, mate, you're in a bad way. Why don't you join the fire service? It's a really good atmosphere. I think you'll really enjoy it." And I was like, "Oh, sweet as." So it was kind of like my rowing career. I got told by the head boy to start fire service. I got told by a bunch of guys to start. Like I've never, as much as I've thought I've had a plan, I've never had a plan, and I just kind of roll with it. Yeah, I think in what was it, 2000, might have been 2019. I randomly got asked to join the New Zealand bobsled team.
Oh, true. What happened there? Turned it down, or
No, I flew over to Canada and did a stint.
did you?
We did the American. It was called the America's Cup for bobsledding over in Calgary.
Yeah.
North American Cup, sorry. So flew over, met up with a guy called Nick Corbin and a guy called can't think of his name, the pilot. But yeah, met up with this group, and like literally no budget, had bought this sled off one of the Canadian teams, and it was one of their old training sleds. And we literally had no money and no clue what we were doing, and we just turned up and gave it a nudge. And we weren't even going that bad. I think we were in the top 7 in this event,
Really?
and then we just had a real bad crash.
Oh, true.
And no one ever tells you in bobsledding that even if you're upside down, you only go a few seconds slower. So no matter whether you start up the right way or you're upside down, you'll still cross the finish line.
Wow.
So you start the race and you can flip completely upside down and you will still cross the finish line,
Jeez.
but just a few seconds slower. And it hurts. It's not pretty. I think we crashed on the 7th corner of 16, and you're still pulling like 3 or 4 Gs upside down, getting crushed against the ice.
Wow, it's brutal. Any major injuries from that, or is it just shit scary?
I think I got a bit of like burns on my shoulder.
Yeah.
No one ever tells you that ice burns as well.
Yeah.
The friction when you're upside down going at 100k an hour,
Far out.
getting pushed against the ice really hurts. So as much as I enjoyed that, my wife, who was heavily pregnant at the time, decided I wasn't doing that sport anymore. And I couldn't really disagree with it.
That's so cool. You've just gone over there, given it a crack. So you'd never done it before. You knew nothing really about it, or you must have known something to be half decent.
No. I literally got sent because Simon van Veldhoven got asked to go, and he couldn't go because he was getting married. So I was like, I'm on leave. Why not? So
Oh, that is good stuff. Mate, you've done it all. Absolute lad. Mate, what a journey. Geez, that's some good stuff in there, and real interesting insight into life as a rower, especially how you got how it all ended, mate. It's crazy stories there. But as always, we've gone to our Instagram for some questions.
No worries.
Fair few have come through for you, the lad that you are. First question, what's your favourite sport to watch?
Favourite sport to watch? At the moment, I'm getting into the Formula One.
Would you give it a go?
I'd love to get in a car. I always saw myself as a car driver, but I'm always too big. But I'm nowhere near skilled enough to do that. But yeah, quite enjoy the motorsport. Can't not watch the rugby really.
Yeah.
Getting behind the All Blacks and yeah, but really anything Olympics. Anytime the Olympics come on, doesn't really matter what sport it is. I just get into it. Yeah, it's just cool to watch, and it gives you all those same kind of feels when you see someone succeeding and winning, and
yeah,
it gives you that nostalgia and that reminder that what you've done is pretty cool. So,
mate, they said you're too small for rowing, but that didn't stop you. Maybe you could give Formula One a go.
No way. I don't think I'm rich enough to ever get into those things.
Yeah, true. Okay, next question. What's your earliest grinding memory?
Earliest grinding memory, I guess, when I first turned up to Team New Zealand and Glenn Ashby was showing me around the gym, and it was back in the old Team New Zealand base where the Park Hyatt is now. Just walking into that shed, and you always kind of think when you look at Team New Zealand that it's a real slick operation and they must have lots of money and all their gear must be state of the art. But then walking into the Team New Zealand shed and it's just a bunch of random machines and just bits and pieces everywhere. It's like literally walking into someone's garage with all the different equipment that they've bought off Trade Me. And just kind of realizing that like it's just the true Kiwi way. Like as much as the team looks like it's built on money, the money's all spent on the development of the boat and the really important things, and everything else is just makeshift and kind of do the best we can.
Crazy, hey, mate.
Yeah, it was
the reality.
It was a pretty special moment, just realizing how Kiwi the team was.
Yeah,
and it wasn't some big enterprise that I thought it was. It was just a bunch of lads and girls doing the best they can to build this extreme boat.
Crazy. Good insight. Okay, next question is from a good man called Jared. How'd you develop the sprint of doom?
It wasn't definitely by necessity. We didn't really have a choice. We were always trailing everyone else. So all we had to do was do our best and just kind of mongrel it to the finish line. So I guess it kind of developed in 2010. I think we were in third place or fourth place coming into the finish, and we were coming to the finish line, and the crowd was just so massive on Lake Karapera, and we just got amped up and just started pushing harder and harder and just kept it going right to the end. And it kind of just developed from there, and we kind of got to a point where we realized in the last 500, no matter how screwed we were, we could always finish on a high. So it was just knowing that it was only 500 meters to go, so you could always finish. What did someone say? You pass out, you black out before you die. So
the motto you've lived your life by.
yeah, definitely.
How goes that? Was your fourth split the fastest, or were they all pretty similar? It just looked the fastest?
I think, to be fair, we're actually, like, our Olympic race, our splits were pretty much the same the whole way through. Like, they were maybe a second and a half faster at the end, but everyone else was just getting slower because they were buggered. We were just holding on, really.
Yeah.
Like, everyone had spent their energy at the start of the race trying to keep away from us, and we're paying for it at the end.
Crazy, mate. That's interesting. Okay, next question. If you could have beers with any other sports team in the world, who would it be?
I don't know. There's too many people. I guess it would be a whole bunch of individual sports people that you kind of get together from like drivers to tennis stars to the rugby boys as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've met a few of the rugby boys, and they're always good to have a few beers with. It's always just good having banter with people that have common ideas and common experiences, I guess. So,
Yeah.
yeah, but you can't really beat getting on the piss with a bunch of good Kiwis. Yeah.
Always good times. You were at the Tasamako final last year, were you?
Yeah. Oh, I wasn't at the final, unfortunately, because we were out on the water.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I was in the lead up for it. I was with the boys when they played Auckland, and they actually got thrashed. So I don't think I was the best luck for them. Every time I came and had a chat with them or a talk to them, they always seemed to get beaten. I was like, man, maybe I just need to stay away, because every time after that, they end up coming through and winning the championship. So, yeah.
Oh, good times. Okay, next question. Any tips for pushing yourself as far as you do?
I guess you just need to find a sport that you're passionate about, and when you're passionate about something, then you can give it your all. I think that was always the most important thing. If you don't enjoy what you're doing, you're never going to be able to push yourself into that dark space to do your best. So, yeah, find a sport you're passionate about and just enjoy what you're doing, and know at the end of the day, you can always recover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to pass out before you die.
Yeah, and definitely in a race where it's a start and a finish line, the faster and harder you go and the more you push yourself, the quicker it's done. That's how I always looked at it. Yeah. It hurts less if you go harder.
Oh, good stuff. Okay, last question. Best piece of advice you've ever received?
I definitely took it on board, I guess, when I was a junior, and I got billeted by this family and a guy called Mike Rogers who rode back in the day. And the thing he said to me that really stuck with me is, it's as simple as controlling the controllables. And for me, that, like, without even explaining it, it just made sense to me. There's so many things that can inhibit what you're doing or change what's happening, or like throw a spanner in the works, whether it be weather or another crew or another team doing something different to what you expected. But at the end of the day, all you can do is what you can do, and if you control the things that you are in control of, then that's all you can do. So yeah, when you're in a race and some team jumps out of the guns, forget about it. If you're not doing your best race, then you're never going to be the fastest anyway. So why chase someone when it can ruin your whole game plan? Kind of really have to stick to what you're doing and believe in what you're doing, and believe in all the training that you've done.
Mate, that is powerful stuff. One of the best pieces of advice we've had on the podcast to date. Wow, we love that.
No worries.
But anyway, mate, really appreciate you coming on the podcast, because that has been an absolute unreal yarn, unreal insight into not only rowing, but Team New Zealand and the America's Cup, and even bobsled. Jeez, I had no idea about that one.
Yeah.
Mate, it's awesome to hear a little bit more about your mindset as well. It's incredible to hear how hard you push yourself. And, mate, really appreciate you coming on the podcast, and all the best for the future. Good luck with the fire service and your next stint with Team New Zealand, mate. You're an absolute lad, so appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
You're a legend.